Welcome, Realm family, to another episode of Wrestling with the Realm podcast. I'm Brian. I'm one half of the power and glory of wrestling podcasts. And on the other side is the Hercules to my Paul Roma, my guy Will.
What's going on, everyone? Man, what's going on? Really exciting video we got here for you guys today. A little WrestleMania 41. 41, I almost said 40. Time flies. It feels just
I've
like
been saying
yesterday.
40.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Cody finished the story, but man, we're almost there. On the road to WrestleMania. Got Elimination Chamber coming up. But Brian's got a few notes he wants to tap into before we get into the prediction side, the match part of it all. So take us away, Brian.
Brian does have a couple of notes. First, I got a little Jim Cornette heat, and I know I'm the first person to ever say that. And maybe you can tell me, Will, if maybe I'm off base and Corny is more with what everybody's feelings are, and everybody else, let us know too, because I'm dying to know what everybody else thinks. So I was listening to Cornette's review of the Royal Rumble, as I'm apt to do. And, you know, Corny is great because he's such a product of his time, and he sticks to it. He fears change. So he's reviewing the Royal Rumble, and he starts with the Women's Royal Rumble, and this kind of where my beef kind of came in. He is super hard on the Women's Royal Rumble. Like, to the point of listening to it, just saying, come on. Like, so Cornette's basic overview of the Women's Royal Rumble is, if they're going to break it into 2 days, they might as well do the Women's Royal Rumble at the Performance Center in Florida.
Really?
And just get that out of the way, because it's just a slog for him to sit and have to watch that to begin with. And he has such a small view, and I use small purposely, pun is intended, because the first thing he does when it's Io Sky and Liv Morgan who come out is that, look at them, they got those little legs got a lot of room to cover trying to get to that ring. Who's gonna be running around like that? It's like, okay, they're not 6 feet tall. I'm not sure what his problem is. I mean, you and I both were kind of on the same page of, they actually started it out really well.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the Women's Royal Rumble was pretty entertaining and pretty good. Now, I have my theory that Cornette's problem is that somehow he still has a problem with women being to that level of professional wrestling now, that we're putting them on an equal footing with the men's division, which I've been saying since I've come back into the whole wrestling scene, is that they're great. I think it elevates the product so much to be able to have a competitive women's division on all three brands. But Cornette is he is so hard on them, and it really I feel like he shows his bias towards it, that for whatever reason he doesn't think that the women can put out a good product, and it's not wrestling. Look at them out there doing kicks and missing people's head, and then Model Girl comes out, and Model Girl, she's gonna throw a couple of kicks. Hate her because she's too tall. It's like, what? Yes, Maxine Dupree has her limitations, but he gets upset when she does the worm and everybody pops for it. He is from a time when they used to say any heat is good heat. Get over. But for some reason, this horribly offends him. Will, were you horribly offended by the Women's Royal Rumble? And was anybody else have such a problem with it, or are we closer to what people think, that people dig it and Cornette's in the minority?
I think first of all, Cornette needs to get over himself. I think that's the big thing here. I think there is some heat about the Women's Royal Rumble that I was picking up on, just being online, listen to stuff. People did not like the Nia Jax spot. So I went back and I watched it.
Okay. Oh, the big spot when she comes, she throws everybody off. Okay.
Yeah, I can kind of agree. I think you can make Nia Jax look strong, and she needs to look strong. That's her character. Does she need to throw out seven of the top superstars? Probably not. She could have done that earlier in the Rumble with like a Lyra Valkyria, Ivy Nile, Maxine Dupree, just like toss them all out. You don't need to do it with Bianca, Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, like
Yep.
all these people. You don't need to do it with that many top talent. It makes them look weak. Overall, though, the wrestling in the match was really good to me. I mean, the heat on the women's rumble that it's receiving is mostly from the Nia Jax spot. But like overall, I thought it was a good rumble. I don't
Okay.
know.
I
I know
mean,
you probably feel the same way.
mhm. So like when it came to the Nia Jax spot, what's kind of funny about that is that our guy Joe let me know about that right away, that he really dug that spot with Nia
Hmm.
Jax.
Yeah,
And
no.
he's coming from an old school approach to wrestling also. We've talked about it before where you get your Jade Cargills or Undertaker, Kevin Nash, and you get your skyscrapers. Well, you also have the other side where you have your big, strong bruisers who are going to be the people that are just they're going to be power is their thing, and that's what they do. And you have to have that person on the roster. Nia Jax is that person. And I didn't have a horrible problem with Nia Jax doing the spot where she throws everybody out because that's exactly what her character is supposed to be. And it keeps
Hmm.
her in that position going forward. That if you have to get into a spot where we need the super powerful person to come in and lay waste, she can still do that. So I wasn't totally bothered by it, but Cornette just he dislikes Nia Jax a lot too, and it that one kind of bothers me. He's like, "Oh, here comes the fridge. Here comes the fridge in there. Now she's gonna do that." It's like, is that necessary, Corny? Like, you really have to be
Like,
like, I feel like it's too much for a product that arguably has been better than it has been in a long time, and he chooses the women's side to throw all of his vitriol for. He doesn't understand Alexa Bliss. Why people, I don't get it. Why she come back? Look at her. She weighs 70 pounds. It's like, she doesn't weigh 70 pounds. Don't use hyperbole to try to prove your point. It's silly. I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way, and I felt like I needed to get it out there that I think Cornette, you're way too hard on the women's Royal Rumble. It's okay. There's a lot of good performers out there that you don't need to be
mhm.
so upset about. Especially coming from the guy who thought Sunny was the greatest person that ever came through wrestling's door on the women's side. So there's that.
Yeah. What I guess, if you're gonna criticize it, there's stuff you can criticize I mean,
Yes.
the whole pay-per-view for, honestly. How about the fact that you could have had I would have switched the Nikki Bella number 30 with Alexa Bliss at 21. I feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so
That's a good switch.
I mean, here's another thing everyone needs to get over. AJ Lee is not coming back ever. Ever. It's over, guys. Give it up. Every Rumble, they're like, AJ Lee's coming. No, never. It's not happening. And if it happens, I'll clip this up, post it on TikTok a year from now. But it's just not happening. So when it's her arch rival, Nikki Bella, there's a bit of a sour taste for people. Now, if she
Sure.
came out at 21, I feel like people would have been more into that.
Yeah.
As if Alexa Bliss came out for 30, no one would have been disappointed with Alexa Bliss. Like that is a huge return.
Hmm.
It's been over a year and a half.
Yeah.
So there's a
I agree.
there's a fair criticism outside of how people look.
We like to have a little bit of fun with Lyra Valkyria, but we're also the same ones who say if she can get past the limitations that bother us, we'll be the first ones to give her props for that. And these are also fine hairs to split, by the way. I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking far and away from the Attitude Era, from where I came from to today. So when we look at Lyra Valkyria, or we kind of give other people a little bit of a overrated, or we kind of harp on them a little bit, we're talking about people who have made it to a really good spot and who are good at what they do, but we're critiquing them because we're expecting really, really great things at this point. So it's a compliment to everybody else in that division on the men's and the women's side that we expect so much now because the bar has been risen, that when people get in there and we notice some things about them, again, with Lyra Valkyria last night on Monday night on Raw, again, sloppy match. That whole match was sloppy between her and Bayley, but we'll call out the sloppiness and all of that. It's still splitting hairs because we expect more out of them. Jim Cornette, I feel like, is just unreasonably a little bit cruel towards the women's side, and I just needed to get that out because it was bothering me because it's like, dude, Cornette, I get it. It's not wrestling anymore. It's not what it used to be. We are a different product now than what it used to be. It's a television product now. It used to be back in the day, you would get your television, and that would be to promote your live events that you would do. And you would hope to get the biggest house that you can get, and that's where you're going to make your money. That model is gone. Netflix paid 100%. Them $5 billion to have their show on. They're making money off of TV contracts now. It's no longer about getting people to a house show or getting people to your big pay-per-views. So it's a television product, and they're presenting it that way. They're showing us what they want us to see. So when I see people who are at the event and they have videos of things, specifically in the Women's Royal Rumble, towards the end when all the girls got dumped and they're going back towards the ramp, right before they get to the curtain, Naomi has Liv Morgan in a headlock, and Naomi is throwing her horribly bad punches that she throws.
Yeah.
It's a fair critique. Naomi, heads and tails above where we were in the Attitude Era. Her punches are sloppy, and she does other things sloppy, and we'll call it out. But it doesn't take away from the total enjoyment of the product. But she's throwing her bad punches at Liv Morgan, and she gives her a noogie at the end before they walk back. And I go, okay, that's funny. The cameras for the show didn't show us that. So I will let that go. Corny, be better about the women.
Yeah, okay, he's definitely loser of the wrestling week for sure.
So my other thing, again, pertaining to the Women's Royal Rumble, is Charlotte Flair. And the reaction that Charlotte Flair has gotten is a masterstroke with what the WWE does today in 2025. And my wife and I were just talking about it last night, how social media has become such a valuable tool for professional wrestling. It has opened up the storylines and the way that you can present these stories so much better. So you have Charlotte Flair, who a couple months ago, everybody is talking about, oh, she's going to come back. She's going to win the Royal Rumble, and then she's going to face Tiffany Stratton. Everybody was saying that. She comes out and wins the Royal Rumble. Everybody's upset that she won the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
That is silly, but it's also perfect that she comes out then on Monday night and everybody's booing her. And you could almost see it on her face that she's like, yes, it's working. Everything that we were hoping everybody would do, everybody's falling right in line. Because you have Tiffy Time has been working more and more face because she is over like Rover right now.
So over.
So somebody in that match is going to have to work heel. Well, that's going to be Charlotte. And they organically found a way to get her heel without having to do anything other than having her come out and win the Royal Rumble and having people leave her eyes. And she has instant heel heat because of that. So I think it's wonderful how sometimes the wrestling community actually help what creative and the writers want them to do. And it was kind of amazing. I was like, geez, this took literally like less than 48 hours and it got baked in. So congratulations, everybody. You did exactly what they were hoping you would do, and you guys got mad at Charlotte. So well played. But speaking of Charlotte, that takes us to what our main topic is that we're going to have today
Yes.
after Brian's rant corner has concluded. Let's start on that side, Will. Will, take us through
Yeah.
our WrestleMania cards and see if we can get some predictions out there. So let's start on the women's side since we're talking about Charlotte. Take us
Yep.
away, Will.
We'll start with our Rumble winners. I mean, no prediction needed. We got Jay versus Gunther announced on Raw. I'm excited for the match for the
Yeah.
most part. I think they're doing a good job of really making it feel like, you know, intense and like a real blood feud. So I'm excited for that. Um, I think you would agree with me on the other side, women's Rumble winner. I think everything's kind of with Charlotte not appearing on Raw. Um, I think it's Charlotte versus Tiffany at WrestleMania.
It has to be.
Yeah,
I mean, it only makes sense.
I think it is just the perfect feud because Tiffany is all about herself and Charlotte Flair's going for this it girl character. I'm coming for everything, every title. And I just think it's the perfect matchup. And in the ring, it's the perfect matchup. I mean, Charlotte had that match with Rhea at 39. I think this is going to top it.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
agree.
especially when Charlotte can work more of like the powerhouse in the match as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just going to be money. I think the feud's going to be money. And I could see it honestly closing out a night of WrestleMania. That's how good the match is going to be. I know
Yeah,
they
I think we
typically,
mentioned that on another episode where we were like,
yeah,
we can't forget about Charlotte and
hmm
Tiffany because
yeah,
that's going to be a banger of a match. That's going to be a good match.
yeah. And I know CM Punk is desperately wanting this WrestleMania main event. I'm, I know we're going to get into that in a little bit. I'm sorry. He just, to me, and I'm not a CM Punk hater, everyone. I just want to say that. I feel the same way about Roman. I feel the same way about Seth right now. To me, like, Roman's been away on for so long, and Seth and CM Punk really haven't ignited that feud again. Maybe I feel differently when we come back and we do our actual card predictions,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like Tiffany has done such a good job this year that she deserves to close a night of WrestleMania out. And I know that's not a spot they typically give to the women, but I really just feel as she deserves it.
Yeah, they've been feeling it with Tiffany since
Hmm
Elimination Chamber last year.
Yeah.
Like, ever since that, like, because that was kind of a big deal too, where I was like, wow, they're throwing her right into Elimination Chamber. And she she worked well. Like, that's a
hmm
spot where I feel like you have to put somebody, if you're going to put somebody in there, there has to be a level of trust that goes into it. And she passed with flying colors. I mean, just like with War Games, you go into War Games match, they, for as much as we talk about Lyra Valkyria getting pushed as hard as she you can see a drastic drop off from Tiffany Stratton to Lyra Valkyria.
hmm
That's how good Tiffany is. And I feel like we've not, I hope we haven't overstated that because I feel like everybody can see it, but the proof is in the pudding with her. I mean, you watch it and you can see that she has it. And you put her and Charlotte together, and that's going to be it's going to be a great match, especially like you said, you have Charlotte can play the power side of that, and then you have Tiffany, who is the young up and comer, who she's all over the ring. Like
hmm
it's pretty impressive. Um, Her Energizer Bunny quality that she has, and you mix that with Charlotte's presence,
Yep.
power, and Charlotte can move. So that is
Yep.
going to be entertaining as heck to see those two. Super
It's
excited for that.
yeah.
You could put your money on that one. That one is happening.
Yep. Take it to the house, man. Bet the
Yeah.
house on it. Yep.
Yep.
So let's stick on the women's side. Let's go through all three of these championships. And I think we're gonna disagree on this one a little bit. what Lyra Valkyria is doing at WrestleMania. Um, do you think she's gonna wrestle Ivy Nile at Elimination Chamber? Is this gonna be a Raw match? I'm I'm confused.
I This has all the makings on it to me as a leveling up boss for Lyra Valkyria going to Mania, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Um, she's going to go through Ivy Nile. Boy, do you make that an Elimination Chamber match? I don't think so. I think that's a Raw match,
That's
honestly.
got to be a Raw match.
Right? Like that's got to be a Raw match. You put her through Ivy Nile, and you start giving her some bigger bosses to face before we get to whoever that's going to be at WrestleMania. Again, it's a congested mid card on both sides, and we talked about this. Might have been last episode or the one before. You may have to start slotting top card people into mid card championship matches, and not be afraid to do that to get the rub on some of these championships. Because as much as, Dakota Kai, fine. Everybody who went through in those mid card matches for the US championship and the IC title, that's all great and fine. But
Hmm.
does that get you excited for WrestleMania with one of them? You have to slot somebody else into that. And that's where it probably won't happen. Although there could be room for this. I think we mentioned it before. I say throw Becky Lynch in there, have Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria at WrestleMania, and have them give somebody else in that match who people want to see, which would be Becky Lynch. Can't believe I have to say that part again. Nobody come at me saying I'm Jim Cornette now and I'm being mean. I'm not being mean to Lyra Valkyria. I hope she does better, but
I as well have Becky and Lyra in the
okay.
match. Here's a little twist I got for you. You put this match at Elimination Chamber,
For
okay?
for Becky and Lyra.
No, for Lyra and Ivy Nile.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the numbers game is being played by you got the two, gosh, American made goons out there, man. They're great wrestlers though, both of them. I think it's Brutus and Julius Creed. Yeah,
God,
they can
they're
go in the ring, but their character work is just awful. Sorry, didn't mean to just throw them astray while I'm booking over here.
they took
Um,
shrapnel. That's okay.
yeah. Um, and I would have Becky come out like she's making the save almost and just plant Lyra.
Ooh.
And then Ivy
Oh.
Nile takes the title into Mania, triple threat match.
Oh
Now,
boy.
I have a lot of triple threat matches on this card. I'm actually just sitting here laughing at myself. Like I have a ton of triple threat matches, but I
We'll
feel like,
we'll get to that part.
yeah, I'm showcase. I mean, you got to showcase as many people at WrestleMania. Ivy Nile is actually a pretty good wrestler. I'm not gonna like the character work. I mean, between her, Lyra, and Becky in a feud would be like pretty boring if I'm being honest. Becky works better as a face than a heel,
Yeah.
but I feel like having Lyra chase her title back while also facing Becky, I mean, it would be an unexpected turn, and I'm not going to get that right. But just something I would like to see would probably be those three. But you think it's just one on one Lyra and Becky?
I think we go one on one with Lyra and Becky.
Hmm.
I also just kind of where we've been going with things, especially starting in the Rumble, which we all say that's the start of Mania season. You're either finishing up storylines or hopefully getting new ones going. I could totally see um, having Ivy Nile, Lyra Valkyria. I think that's probably a Raw match, but I also think that Maxine Dupree has to get involved somewhere on that because her and Ivy Nile still had something going on at the
Like
Royal
that.
Rumble. Uh, so I think they can put a bunch of stories together with that title. Not necessarily that Maxine Dupree is involved in that title, but I think you can
Yeah.
keep her and Ivy Niles thing going while having Lyra Valkyria slay another dragon and keep moving forward. But I think we could get that. at WrestleMania, her and Becky. I think that would be an enjoyable match, and it would be one that I definitely would be tuned in for. You know what? That's why I'm not a hypocrite, Will. I figured it out because I will watch every single Lyra Valkyria match. I will
That's
not
right.
miss it. Raw comes on and it's her and Bailey, and I put my phone down and I went, I don't want to miss any of this because I want to make sure I'm
Yeah.
seeing it all and I'm
Fair
getting
criticism.
everything
Yep.
so I can critique and try to be objective and fair about it. So I think we go one-on-one with Becky and Lyra Valkyria. I think this is a perfectly fine storyline for the IC championship going forward.
Yep. And if that doesn't, so Becky is rumored that they're not even going to bring her back till post Mania. I
Ooh.
don't believe that. They're just muddying the waters. If that's the case, though, perfect place to throw in Liv Morgan. I'm not going to lie to you.
Mm.
Lyra and Liv, I know that that's probably they're going to be pushing for these tag titles, but just a dependable person to work a match is Liv Morgan, even
I'm
if
okay with
it's
that.
the mid card title. I think you know just she does it all. Liv has been so dependable. She's been the workhorse over the last
Mm-hmm.
year. So if you need her to work something and Becky's not going to come back till post Mania, that's a great spot for her.
Yeah, I I don't disagree with you. Everybody knows I love Liv Morgan. I'm a Liv Morgan fan, and I am fine with her being in that mid card chase because it's going to put life into that title
Yep.
and with that story. And that's what
Hmm.
we're looking for because she gets heat regardless of what she's doing. I don't know if you saw, and again, for people who criticize on Liv Morgan, Jim Cornette, look at her little legs in there. Oh, how she's supposed to be throwing a kick at people? Could have punched somebody. She's so small. Um, but did you see the backstage stuff with her and Dom and I Show Speed?
No, I did not. I must have
You
not
have
tapped
to
in
you have
on
to
that.
find it. It must have been before the Rumble started, and
Hmm.
I Show Speed is back there and he's running into people and stuff and talking to them. And he walks up to Dom and Liv and tries to start talking to them, and he's kind of spitting out his words, and he's all hyped up, and he says he's trying to say enemy, and he stumbles over his words and says emony instead. And without missing a beat, Dom goes, enemy. And Liv goes, oh my God, I have a lot of enemies too. And they just start going on about him misspeaking. And you can tell that he gets flustered and has nowhere to go. And he just starts barking at them, which was weird. And they play it so well that I go, those are the intangibles of being a heel character that you
Hmm.
can't teach somebody. You have to be on and quick with things. And they kind of nailed it. And I was like, that's why I love them so much that
They're
I don't
great.
want it to go away. And if that means it's in the IC title story, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Speaking of annoying heel characters, let's go to the women's US belt.
Okay.
And I want to ask you first, where do you think it's going for Chelsea Green by the time we get to WrestleMania? I think there's really only one direction, but I want to see where your head's at on this one.
If it's not her and Piper Niven, they're doing something wrong.
I agree 100%
Yeah.
with you. That's where I have it. I
Yeah.
think the whole head of security thing is hilarious, but it can only
Yes.
go so far. I actually think Piper Niven's gonna beat her at WrestleMania. Um,
I agree.
I would just they need to start toning up almost like it's the Nia Jax, Tiffany Stratton thing all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Have her start hitting um Piper Niven, have her start costing Chelsea Green, Piper Niven costing Chelsea Green matches. Start a little friction there. It's got to start probably this Friday, to be quite
Yeah.
honest with you, because the build needs to start happening. Because believe it or not, I believe we're only 2 weeks away from Elimination Chamber, which
I
is
know
crazy
that's
to
crazy.
think about. Yeah. Um. So we're in agreement there. I don't think we need to
Oh
spend
yeah,
too
they
much
have to
time
be.
on that one
Yeah,
because
if they
that one's
don't do
just
that, they're
kind of
leaving money.
that's a lock.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it'd
We,
just be bad booking if they didn't go with that match.
they almost have to. I mean, it's if you're not building to that for WrestleMania, I don't know what you're building to with Chelsea Green. That's the most
Hmm.
interesting story that they could do with her, is her and Piper Niven, and I think that would be a lot of fun. I think, yeah, Piper Niven would go over in that match, and um, I think you can work a lot with Chelsea Green and Piper Niven going
Hmm.
forward, with everybody else being involved in that you want to throw into that mid
Yeah.
card lineup. I think they have I think they have an easier time with the U.S. Championship than the IC title right now.
Yeah,
That's
for
why your
sure.
Liv Morgan idea is not a bad idea, or anybody from that. I mean,
Anyway,
and you're not wrong about that. Going back to the IC title, if you do throw Liv into that, if Becky's involved in it, I could totally see something with that. But I'm not, unlike Jim Cornette, who's just going to fast forward through that on my old style TV. I don't have one of them streaming. I don't know how to do that. So I use old TV with the remote control and pause it. I'm not going to watch that match. I'm going to fast forward right through it. Hate everybody from the North, the Yankees. So he'll go right past that match. He's not even going to watch any of those, but we
missing
will,
out. That's
because of
right.
us.
He's gonna be missing out. All right, Brian. Since we're in such agreement on the Chelsea Green Piper Niven, I
100%.
got something that maybe we won't be as much on agreement in.
Okay.
So you look at the tag team division, they're doing a better job on Raw, I'd say, with the belts.
I think it feels that way. Yeah.
I know I was giving the Creed brothers a tough time, but sometimes their backstage stuff is just cringe-worthy.
Yes.
And maybe that's the point of their character. So maybe they're doing their job and I don't know. But you have the champions, the War Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Creed brothers. You have the New Day, who I'm assuming is going to find their way to the title picture. On the SmackDown side, you have DIY, the champs. You have Motor City Machine Guns. You have the Street Profits. And you have Pretty Deadly. With the Street Profits coming back, I don't think Pretty Deadly is like really in the title picture. But you have to I feel like that storyline needs to be paid off at some point. You have Motor City Machine Guns, and honestly, you can throw them out of it at this point. You lost your match at Royal Rumble. To me, you're done. So that leaves you with 6 teams. Why not just run back the ladder match?
Yeah.
Why not run back this ladder match idea you did last year? I know it's a bit like it's a lot. It is, to be quite honest with you, to have both sets of belts hanging up there. And the only thing that kind of you know, can you really go back to back years where someone only grabs one set of tag belts when they're on the ladders instead of grabbing both? To me, wrestling, you're supposed to expand your
Mm-hmm.
imagination a little bit. But if they're up there, they need to grab both sets of belts. Like when Grayson Waller had the belts up there and then he got shoved down, fine. But if you do it back to back years, it's hard to expand the imagination
Mm-hmm.
then. I don't know if I'm making sense with that.
No, you're totally right. It goes back to making the universe bigger or smaller that we were talking about last time. When you
Yeah.
do that kind of stuff, it makes the whole WWE storylines for tag division seem smaller when you do that kind of stuff. We need bigger ideas that expand it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know how, because to me, unless you're going War Raiders and Creed brothers, and you're not putting the New Day in WrestleMania, which would be odd because they had the biggest heel turn all year, and you're just gonna blow it and not use it. Odd. I wouldn't
Yeah, I
do
don't think
that.
that's going to happen.
You would have to do a triple threat match for me then, unless you're kicking the Creed brothers out, but you're pushing this storyline when they got disqualified, and you have to pay that off at some point. And I honestly liked it. I like seeing the Creed brothers with more of an edge. So, to me, they're working towards a WrestleMania spot. On the other
Well,
side, on SmackDown,
yeah.
you can't really not put Pretty Deadly in the WrestleMania picture. because me and you love that story.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it's been great. But then you push the Street Profits in to with the Royal Rumble return. So on both sides, you're pushing guys and teams like the Street Profits and the Creed brothers that really don't need this WrestleMania match outside of being wildly talented in the ring,
Hmm.
but you're pushing them towards a tag title match. When you have two other storylines in the New Day and Pretty Deadly that should just get these one-on-one matches. So unless you're doing two different triple threat matches, it just makes more sense to make it a ladder match.
Boy, seeing the ladder match thing, I feel like, one of our favorite terms in wrestling was go to the well one too many times. And I feel like ladder match, we just had one. Like we
Yeah.
literally just had one with
Mm-hmm.
KO and Cody, and it was a really good one. We had ladder match last year in Mania, which was a really good one. We had,
Mm-hmm.
it was a fun finish. It was good spots with R-Truth. It was you know what I mean? Like it was fun to see that. And boy, we've come a long way in a year, haven't we? In
Yeah.
that tag division. We went from R-Truth not knowing what he had to do on the ladder to where we are today. So it's hard to go back and do those ladders again. And it may be as simple as they are trying to build up that tag division again. Like it honestly feels like on both brands, they're actively trying to get a legit tag division. We talked about this last pod also. Um, Instead of just throwing two people together
Mm-hmm.
and forming them into a tag team or having a faction going forward or a stable, uh, it feels like they're trying to get back to a tag division, and everything that you were just talking about with all the different players, that might be something as simple as uh, having all of your GI Joes in the sandbox when you're a kid, trying to whittle it down to what your
Yeah.
WrestleMania is going to be. They have so many different angles that they can go, but it feels like one of those angles has to lead to New Day winning the tag championship at WrestleMania. Like it feels like
Yes.
that has to happen. Like if they have a
Mm-hmm.
big whitey
Agreed.
race board, which I hope they do. White erase boards are so fun with that stuff because it's so The Office. I could just see them back there writing with the dry erase marker, wiping it off. Um, Jim Cornette sitting there in Vince's kitchen. Oh, look at that whiteboard. I like using a whiteboard. I used to use a legal pad. I have magazines in my attic from years and years of wrestling. You don't know wrestling because you're a Yankee. Um, but it feels like they're going towards New Day. You don't, because they're hot right now. Again,
Yeah.
they are over like Rover with their heat. Like there's a couple of people right now who just have heel heat. You have Dom, who's a mainstay. You have Logan Paul, who just gets booed as hard as Dom, and it's so great. You have New Day. Like those are like those top three where it is just pure. Everybody is on board with loving to hate them. So it feels like all roads have to lead to New Day on one side. Now you have so many other tag teams in those divisions now that I think we're just going not ladders at WrestleMania, but we're going to have standard matches with maybe some sort of stipulation, but
Yeah.
nothing crazy. I feel like we're getting more back to um, equilibrium as far as tag title matches go and leaving all of the crazy stuff not behind, but pulling it
Mm-hmm.
out for special occasions. And I know WrestleMania is a special occasion, but I also think we're heading towards a more stabilized tag division when it comes to that stuff. That's what it
You
feels
want to know what? I'm kind of happy you talked me off that ledge
like.
because
Okay.
I didn't really want another ladder match. So I'm happy you kind of just broke
Yeah.
it down for me. The GI Joe sandbox
Yeah.
analogy really helped me out there. I
Okay,
was
good.
I was vibing with that.
Yeah.
Um.
You have your
Okay.
favorites that you know
Yeah.
are going to get some play. Like you got Zartan and the boys.
Hmm.
Zartan and all those guys. They're getting in their business. So
Yeah.
you're not putting any firecrackers or changing the pieces around with any of the other Joes or the Cobra guys. So New Day is Zartan and the Dreadnoughts right now. We know that those guys, everybody loves to see them. They're fun. People love to hate them. We know they're going somewhere. I feel like everybody else is just playing right now until stuff gets sorted out, which
All
isn't a
right.
bad thing. It's not a
Yeah.
bad thing because you have to have your weekly episodes of Raw and SmackDown. So you have to have something to do there. You don't want it to be stale. So I'm fine with guessing where they're going to go with that. It's been wrestling is not bad, everybody, when we're unsure of where things are going. It's okay to not have all the answers.
Okay. Now I'll give a final prediction on where I'm going with the tag matches for Mania. I'll go one-on-one War Raiders, and I'm gonna do New Day. Just
Okay.
one-on-one. And then on the SmackDown side, I'll go triple threat match between Street Profits, DIY, and Pretty Deadly. You want to know what? Fatal four way. Throw in Motor City Machine Guns too.
They'd be the ones to do it. I feel like if they were going to do something like that, you might
Yeah.
get it on the SmackDown side, not the Raw side. If
Well,
that
yeah, and
makes sense.
I feel that's because they did a better job booking their division. I
Yeah,
feel like there's too many guys you can't leave off the Mania card. Whereas
yeah,
if like the Creed brothers aren't on there, so be it.
yeah. Like
Like
it
they,
almost feels like they're distinguishing the brands more and more.
Mhm.
Um, when when the Attitude Era was going on, and after that, and they started getting into the Raw and the SmackDown and the brand split, I hated it.
Yeah,
It drove me insane. I hated it. I see fast forward to 2025 now that what they were able to do with that idea, but it feels like even in the last 2 years, they're trying to distinguish themselves more and more. Once they brought out all the new championships on Raw, and then SmackDown got new championships with the tag belts. There's a pattern with those. On Raw, everything seems much more classically designed after the big gold belt
yep.
and maybe not a different, I don't want to say a different style of wrestling, but a different, I guess, a little bit of a different, not old school approach, but a little
hmm
bit more old school. And then when you go to SmackDown, SmackDown feels like a pure WWF product, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And it's almost reflected in the championships. When they brought the tag belts back out, those look like the old tag
Oh yeah,
championships from back in the day.
100%.
We call everything on Monday Night Raw, that's world championships, world tag team champions. You go to SmackDown, everything is WWE before it. So I feel like there is more distinguishing between those two brands. And if you're going to do a fatal four way, that's something you do with the SmackDown brand, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Maybe that's just me reading into how they work these two brands, but it feels like SmackDown gets to be the more silly side and Raw gets to be the more serious side, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I agree with you. Do you disagree with any of those matches? Do you have your own set of tag matches you're going for? I'm sure we agree on the Raw side.
Yeah, the Raw side, I mean, War Raiders don't have to be there, but I feel like it would be a shame if they're not
Yeah.
because they are a tag team from olden times, as the kids
Yes,
would
they
say
really are.
today. And I dig that. And I feel like they're good in the ring. They're different, and that's fun to see. And they are a pure tag team. So I'm all about them being in it. I'm just not sure about that. But again, I think all roads lead to New Day goes over at WrestleMania. Um, and then the Fatal Four Way on the other side, I'm fine if they decide to do that
Mhm.
because if you're going to do it with anybody, do it with those four tag teams. Seems to make the
Yeah,
most sense. So
agreed.
I'm down. I'm down with the sickness.
Yeah, you want to know what? I missed something. We were doing the women's division, and before we get to our men's mid card titles, we did not talk about the women's elimination chamber or Rhea Ripley's opponent because we think Tiffany's going to face Charlotte, obviously.
Look at that, the women's division. Y'all couldn't even remember what you wanted to do for it because it's so bad. Rhea Ripley is the only one in there who knows how to work. try to get somebody else in there, and I got to see their little legs running around. Hey, yeah.
Jim Cornette was so happy that we just missed part of the women's
Oh,
division.
100%.
Um, I think they're building to it. You could have said Rhea Io Sky, but that is a Raw match.
Yeah.
Which what a great match to have after Elimination Chamber on, weekly television. That's a WrestleMania worthy match. But that being said, it is going to be Rhea Bianca Belair.
Yeah, it feels like it.
With a heel Bianca, I don't know how we get there. I know me and you have had our theories in the past.
I still think it involves Jade Cargill somehow with that whole thing. I feel like there's something in that is going to help do the heel turn. And let's not understate in the Royal Rumble when Naomi goes and gives Jordynne Grace a hug, and Bianca Belair is the one who pulls Naomi aside and is like, "Hey, what are you doing? There's no place for friends here." So it was weird that Bianca had the moment of pulling Naomi away and like, "Why are you being so nice?" And that kind of stuff doesn't happen by accident. They do all that stuff on purpose. So, that might be that first little seed of seeing where Bianca's head's really at with stuff. But I think it's going to involve Jade Cargill and Naomi. That whole thing is what gets us to heel Bianca when that all gets revealed.
Agreed. I'm on the same wavelength as you on that stuff. We don't got to spend a whole lot of time on that because I have the men's mid-card titles up next. And these are, I think on the Raw side, you have Braun Breaker. I think everyone thought it was going to be Sheamus, but they are hinting at an AJ Styles Braun Breaker feud. And I am not mad at it. I think that is going to be first of all, a dream match with Braun Breaker. And I just think it is perfect match style. They are going to clash so well on the mic, in the ring together. And I don't think do you have anyone else that you would even consider for that match?
Jacob Fatu, but I don't know if we're there yet.
I don't think we are. I don't think there's enough time, and I don't think you can move Jacob to Raw in the amount of time to build that feud.
They clearly want us to notice that. I mean, we weren't wrong with talking about that before the Royal Rumble because we did get the hint of that in the Rumble. And boy, everybody wants that match. And you know what would suck? It would suck to be sitting there at WWE and be looking at those two pieces and being like, this is money. Book it for WrestleMania. But do we have enough time to get there? And are we so confident that a year from now we'll have the same amount of heat on those two? I think probably yes. I think that's a next year thing where we'll get Jacob Fatu and Braun Breaker, and it'll be money because everybody would love to see that. So AJ Styles, I'm down with that. That goes back to what we said earlier. Start putting some of these top guys into that mid-card championship scene and give it a little rub. And I'm down with that. I think that would be a really fun match. And that'd be a good match for AJ Styles to put him into a program coming back now. Like that seems fitting. I don't see any problem with that whatsoever.
All right. Perfect. We're on the same page with that. I think we could be on the same page with this one too. How about Big Jim versus Shinsuke Nakamura at WrestleMania? And I think this will get us to touch on, I know last year the Usos didn't have the best WrestleMania moment together. City of Brotherly Love, and it was just a brother versus brother super kick stinker. It was just a bad match. But what if, to kick off the night one, you have Jimmy beat Shinsuke Nakamura? I think that could just be a good match, good feud. Shinsuke's that weird heel that's just lurking at all times, can jump Jimmy. I think there can be a good feud there. And then when I think Jay beats Gunther at the end of the night, you can have them have a new WrestleMania moment, both as singles champions, and you can go from there. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't dislike that. We're both kind of hip to Jimmy, Big Jim.
Big
Uh,
Jim.
I I'm down with that. I like the Gunther interaction that he had. Uh, Boy, Gunther is doing a lot of good work, by the way, on the mic.
Yeah.
He has a way about him that he can get some of these guys over just by what he's saying. Um, you know, Maybe you'd be where your brother is if you would have said yeet first, which I think he did say yeet first. But again, still makes that even funnier. Even if
Yeah.
Jimmy did say it first, it's still that's still a hard rib that's cold as ice that you're comparing him to his brother who's just won Royal Rumble. So Gunther's doing great work. I feel like he's helping. He is like CM Punk is when it comes to the mic work. That Punk is just advancing storylines just by doing mic work,
Yep.
which is invaluable.
100% agree.
The only thing that I see different about Jimmy, and I kind of wanted to save this till we got into Gunther and Jay, but I'll throw it out there now because we're talking Big Jim. I like the idea of him winning the U.S. title, but what I would dig so much, I know I've mentioned it to you via text message. You have Jay go over against Gunther. You have Jimmy win Money in the Bank, and you have him cash in on Jay at some point. And now we can move forward with a proper WrestleMania match with those two and have a title on the line. That would be super fun. I don't know if they'd go that way because now you're putting a lot of eggs in an USO basket. Uh, and it doesn't leave a
So
lot of room for
basket, man.
everybody else. But boy, that would be a better part two for those guys if you throw Money in the Bank on top of it, and you like just imagine Jimmy coming in and cashing in on Jay would be an
So
epic
good.
moment. Uh, but I'm not opposed to him winning the U.S. title, and let's moving forward with that. I wouldn't be disappointed in that.
He could for sure do both too. He could win
Yeah,
the US title, give him validity if he were to cash in on Jay,
yeah,
and just, it's not crazy that he's a world champion now. Man,
yeah. I like that idea, but I'm down with him beating Shinsuke. I'm okay with that,
yeah.
especially now that we have LA Knight tied up with Drew McIntyre. Again, going back to how social media is their friend for telling stories.
Hmm.
Will everybody for Will has adopted my one of my phrases. It's all a work until you find out otherwise. Everything is
Yeah.
a work until we find out that it's not. And
Hmm.
Drew McIntyre and LA Knight had work written all over it. And by God, it's actually, pun intended, working because
Yeah.
Knight
It's
comes out and
really
cuts a
starting
great
to seem,
promo. Yeah.
yeah, it's really starting to seem that way with those two. And kind of branching off of that idea of like, it's real till it's not, it's a work till it's not. I think Drew McIntyre's original plan for WrestleMania was Damian Priest. I think they have to kind of change it to LA Knight now.
Yep.
Um, Unfortunately, I think one of those guys that's not going to wrestle Drew, unless you make it the triple threat match, which I'm done with triple threat matches. We have another one we're going to touch on. Don't do it. LA Knight or Damian Priest is going to be left off the WrestleMania card.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy to think about where those guys were this time last year, and now they're off the card.
Yep.
Weird. Weird
Yeah.
to think about.
And the person who's getting left off rhymes with Shamey and Shriest
Yep,
is the one who's going to be the odd man out in this.
agreed. And that's crazy to think about. Literally won the World Heavyweight Championship last year.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's out. But yeah, that's just a super quick note on that match. Drew is obviously going over with whoever he faces out of those two at Mania. This is the year before the year of Drew McIntyre. By this time next year,
Drew is going to be with a title. He has one, or he's fighting for one that he is going to win.
Can't
That's just,
argue with that.
yeah, I just think, he's sat and watched for a long time this year. I just kind of think, his time is due. He is very due.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I feel like Drew McIntyre's year is next year. It's not this
Mhm.
one. Um, he just has to get to it. And God bless him for trying to get an angle worked out with this because it is kind of working. LA Knight is over. Drew McIntyre is doing great work as just being a out of control heel who seems
Yeah.
listless at this point, which is a good character turn for him. Um, but again, I think it's masterful that they can take something, whether it's a work or not, and turn it into a work, and it's super believable. And you have to have guys who have the mic skills to do it. And we saw that after the Rumble with LA Knight and Drew McIntyre can work the mic. And LA Knight cut an awesome promo. That
Yeah.
was so it was so perfect. Oh, but I didn't get my stuff in. And it's like that is such a good button on his promo because it makes all that stuff feel real, even
Yeah.
though it's probably all just a work, but it makes it feel real and it gives a little bit of edge to this because these guys have real heat, which is fun. Sometimes the fake real heat is just as good as the real heat, if not
Yeah.
better. And kudos to those guys for pulling off, especially LA Knight, because you got to be able to work the mic to make it believable and keep it going. And he did that. So good job.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we can start heading into main event like range here in a second. There's two more matches we really need to get into.
Yeah.
Is there any matches you feel like are bound to happen? I have one I can briefly touch on that they're heading towards. I mean, unless they do it in Canada, I think Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens is probably going to happen at Mania. Seems like they wrote Sammy off of TV long enough for that to happen.
Yeah. Now here's the question with that.
Hmm.
Where does Orton come back in? Because that feels like the story that he fits into is with
Elimination
those
Chamber.
three. You think
That's
Elimination Chamber?
that's where he comes back and maybe saves Sammy from another package pile driver. That would make
Okay.
more sense. I agree with you. But then is Sami Zayn really left off the WrestleMania card? To me, that's crazy.
I will stake my claim to a special guest referee. You know, I haven't shut up. Anybody who's listened to us knows I haven't shut up about a special guest rep. Would it kill him to have a special guest referee?
Brian loves a special
I
guest
love a special
referee,
guest
man.
referee.
Give it to
I
him.
love that. I don't care if it's James Buster Douglas on the outside doing nothing. I love I love special guest referees. I love Shawn Michaels coming out. He wears his special little shirt. I like how everybody does their own thing. I even like Alexa Bliss as a special guest referee, and I haven't even seen it. I've just seen pictures, so I know that it happened, and I bet it was fun as heck. So I love it. And I will just say, let's have WrestleMania, Randy Orton special guest referee. I will keep throwing that out until it finally sticks. He's involved somehow. There's no way. And we're not doing another triple threat because we're going to talk about another triple threat match in just a second. So
Oh my gosh,
RKO
WrestleMania
gets
triple
involved
threat
somehow.
matches.
And
WrestleMania triple threat matches are hurting my head right now. Too
yep,
many of them, too many good people, and I just need to live with the fact that not every person that deserves it is going to make this card.
yep, yeah, and that's the hard reality. And I know what we're about to get into when we talk about a triple threat match, but here's the interesting thing about this episode. We've talked triple threat match a lot. Joe can let me know how many times we brought up triple threats, and that's the problem. They're not going to have that many triple threat matches, which means there's angles that we're not seeing, especially when it comes to Punk, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. To me, that doesn't have a lot of bite to it.
No, it just doesn't, man.
You and I talked about this. If everybody goes back to our first 2 episodes, our Blue Sky booking of WrestleMania, it is shocking after Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble that if The Rock is there, and I know we're bringing up The Rock again because it's hard not to in these when we're talking about this. If The Rock is at WrestleMania, everything goes back to what we thought it would be. Everybody gets slotted back to where they should be. Because honestly, we didn't even talk about Gunther and the World Championship. So him and Jay, that doesn't even affect anything. If The Rock comes back, you have Rock and Roman, Cena and Cody, and Punk and Seth Rollins, and everything goes back to normal because that makes the most sense. Will, take us into that triple threat match and let's see if we can make it make sense without The Rock being there.
Yes. All right. I got you. It's tough without The Rock being there. I will say that we are, the fact that he inserted himself in so many storylines and then just walked away is definitely a power play by him. And I can almost respect it, but it's leaving these 3 with just a weird triple threat match filled with hate. And with a match being filled with hate instead of a title, it just, especially if we're talking about a main event, I mean, sometimes it works. Like you had Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes with last year's NXT Stand and Deliver be able to, build a feud with a short amount of time, with the heel turn and him causing Trick so many title opportunities. And it works, but you're like, man, couldn't they put the belt on one of the two? For me, having Roman and Punk face off, there isn't enough there for me between those two. Now Roman and Seth, there is enough.
Yes.
Punk and Seth, there is enough there. But Roman being in the match, doesn't it just feel like a filler spot for him almost?
It feels tacked on, and there's no bite to that. Now, we've said before that you can do matches like that at WrestleMania as main events without championships. Like I said, Hogan and Rock. You do one of those, but that's the Rock and Roman spot. There's not having a triple threat with them and having it mean nothing seems odd. It doesn't seem because what does the winner get? Does that satisfy CM Punk having a quote unquote main event at WrestleMania? It seems like it falls short of that. Like you said, Seth has his thing where sure him and Roman have a ton of history that you can get into. But like you just said, it feels like Roman is just tacked on so he has something to do. That's what makes me think that we're not going to get that because it seems so underwhelming. It would be much better with Rock, Roman, Seth, and CM Punk, and you do a last man standing or something. Do something crazy with those two because you already had a big match on Raw. You already had CM Punk and Drew McIntyre in Hell in the Cell. But you need something with him and Seth Rollins to kind of finish this for good because clearly it's not done. So the triple threat just seems so anticlimactic to have that be here's the rest. All of a sudden they're Hufflepuff. They're just all the leftovers of what we have, and we'll throw them into Hufflepuff. Little Harry Potter reference for all of our fans out there. It's just what it seems like. It seems like they're the leftovers, and we're just going to throw them together so they have something to do, and that seems lame at the very best.
And who wins a hypothetical triple threat match?
Anybody who wins, it's going to feel unfinished. It's going to feel like, what was the point of it? If Roman loses, then we're all going, well, what was the point of Roman being in this match? Where does that advance him to?
But if he wins, it's the same thing. Like, oh,
Mhm.
Roman Reigns pinned CM Punk or
Yeah,
he pinned Seth Rollins. Great.
right,
Good, good job, Roman. What does that get
right.
you? A number one contender spot? Like,
And
that's
that seems having a number one contender spot out of that match. I guess you could throw that on there in a pinch to give it something, but it doesn't seem like that's at the very least what they want to do. If it's what they have to do, they have to, but it doesn't seem like that would be the preferable choice.
yeah. It makes me think just like what do you do with those three? Um, I know I'm supposed to give you the hypothetical on how we get there. I don't know
Yeah,
how we get there. I'm
that's
gonna be quite honest with you. I
yeah.
think Roman can come back and destroy the both of them and just have it be not a whole lot of promos being cut, but just blindside attacks.
So,
Um,
so what was, do you remember the exact wording, or you don't have to have the exact wording, with Michael Cole and his message about Roman Reigns, what it was that he's going to be out
indefinitely.
indefinitely? Okay. So hearing that, I go, so he's not going to be in Elimination Chamber if that's what they're telling us. So if he's not in Elimination Chamber, that means he can't win Elimination Chamber, which means he's not going to be going against Cody because we know it's Jay and Gunther now. So
Mhm.
if he's not going to be at Elimination Chamber, that S is gone. That doesn't make sense for what he's going to do. You have to have something ready for him to work with when he does come back from being out indefinitely.
For sure.
So it they could be playing the long con on us with The Rock. I hope that they are just so we can get it over with and The Rock can be full heel and just everybody would want Roman to go over. So let's do it. I hope that that's what happens. Otherwise, it just seems like they have to play with what they have and just kind of come up with something to force it to make sense. Like with keeping Roman out indefinitely. Well, we can't put him in Elimination Chamber because if he loses that, that means he's not at WrestleMania. But then that means somebody else can't go over at Elimination Chamber if he's in it. So we have to get him out somehow. We'll curb stomp him outside the ring. We'll keep him out. We can have John go over at Elimination Chamber. We can have Punk and Seth continue stuff and then pick Roman up at a later date for something.
Yeah.
That seems kind of what they're doing. Is It's kind of a tangled mess to get
Funny you
something.
bring up the chamber. I guess my thought would be if this is where they're going, Roman comes back at the chamber and cost it for Seth and CM Punk.
You could do that too.
I mean, as lame as that sounds, I mean, I was so invested in a triple threat between Cody, Roman, and CM Punk. But Seth can't be left out of that, I feel.
No, no, it feels like he has to have something bigger to do. Um, boy, it just seems. Now, let me throw this out at you, and this kind of segues into our main event. CM Punk did some interesting things. Again, this is me kind of giving everybody their flowers for mic work on this episode, but CM Punk's been really good at it lately. And he kind of did that again on Monday with Cody when he's talking about the elimination, or not with Cody, with Cena, I'm sorry. And he's
Mhm.
talking about who's in the chamber so far. Well, one person just put themselves in it and they just get to be in it.
Yep.
He didn't have to work for it to get in there. He's not wrong. That happened. That's true. Is there the slightest inkling somehow? I don't think so. But do you think that there is the slightest possibility? Could you imagine Cena turning heel in this situation? It's
No,
not going to happen.
no.
It makes more sense for Cody going forward and long term, and this is farewell tour. But it was just an interesting little thing when Punk did that to kind of point out that Cena wins, and maybe they're building to something with Punk and Cena later because
Yeah.
that's not bad if Roman comes in and costs Seth and Punk the Elimination Chamber, and that's how John wins. And the guy who didn't even work to get into it winds up winning at no fault of his own.
Yeah.
or no doing of his own is an interesting idea
It
going
is.
forward.
It is.
Um, it's just a little something that I thought it was interesting that Punk threw that out. That there's just, again, nothing is by accident, and mentioning that is there for a reason. I don't know what that means as far as Mania is going to go. If this is just seeds for another time, uh, but just interesting, just a little tidbit. I'm sure you caught it too, and kind of were
I did
thinking the
catch
same
that.
thing.
And you want to know that you bringing it up now makes me think more that that is going to happen. I think we're working towards this triple threat.
Yeah,
I don't know how it does it main event night one? Because then you have Jay and Gunther. Why, like you win the Royal Rumble, not to close out a night of
yeah,
WrestleMania, and you have John and Cody close out the other night. Because that's the feud I care about. Like
right.
Jay and Gunther is a like on the back burner compared to that.
Yeah, I'm. I'll be honest. I'm getting excited about Jay and Gunther now. I'm
I am as well.
amazing. It's amazing what a little bit of distance from Royal Rumble does for the
Yeah.
story. And you and I said it's on Jay now to make us believe in this going forward. So far, he and Gunther are both making it work because that was a you have a hard task on Monday night when we find out now that Jay is picking Gunther because
Mhm.
you have to explain to people because we all know the world championship is great. It's not the WWE championship.
It's not.
As much as we want it to be, we know it's not. Everybody knows that. So instead of acting like it's on the same level, you have to give us a reason why Jay Uso would pick Gunther instead of Cody and going
Mhm.
for the biggest fish. And they did it. I loved it on Monday night. Jay sold it when he's like, I shouldn't say it. Can't believe I'm going to say this, which just gave it that little bit that I needed to let me know everybody understands that Cody's championship is different than the
Mhm.
world championship, and he's aware of that. So he knows that by picking Gunther, there's more to this than just that championship. There's something else why he needs to face him. And the I was watching it and I was like, this would be a great bit of the story if they do this. Um, they can call me up and we can hammer out the details. It would be so gratifying if next week Gunter comes out and he's just like, Jay, you did exactly what I wanted you to do. I want to face you. I don't want to have to work at WrestleMania. Now I can sit back and I can relax because I have to face you. You made your decision. Like it would be great if the whole thing was just Gunther baiting him in to pick
Yeah,
him so he can be like, I don't need to worry about losing my championship at WrestleMania because I have to face you again. Like that would be such a perfect little
I'm with that.
turn to it that, haha, fooled you. You're so gullible. You fell for exactly what I wanted you to do. Now I don't got to worry about facing, and he could even go through the roster of I don't have to worry about facing John Cena or CM Punk, and like he could go down the whole thing because I have to
Yeah,
wrestle you. This is nothing. Like that would be a nice little button on it, which I hope they do. And it makes Jay, it really forces him again to be, it's the tortoise and the hare
Mhm.
with those two, or David and Goliath, that it's just, yep, just keep beating
Yep.
Jay down, that he's a joke. So when he comes out on top, it's even better. So just throwing that out there, just a little something, something I was thinking about that I really liked.
No, I like that thought. I like
Yeah.
that. Um, so I guess prediction wise for these two main events, I think I am gonna bet on the triple threat main eventing night one.
Ooh.
I know, because I just until The Rock's there and I see him, I'm not gonna bet on him showing up.
Hmm.
Um, as we get closer, maybe I change. Maybe they swerve us again, and someone else wins the chamber that we don't. Maybe Pop
Boy.
wins it.
Oh,
That would be a real throw off.
yeah, it would be. It boy, it really would be because, boy, could you imagine? we sit back down after Elimination Chamber and John Cena doesn't win.
And
that would be
yeah.
That would be a swerve.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, we'd be probably more startled than we were in our Royal Rumble video, more confused.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
But I would bet on John winning, and I would bet on John facing Cody. Cody Lander versus Super Cena at WrestleMania Night 2.
Yep.
I think John gets 17. I think I'm finally changing it up. This whole time I had Cody retaining.
Yeah.
And I just believe after he cut that promo after the Rumble that, like, he made me believe that he is going to go get 17 at WrestleMania 41.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it.
I have Cena going over. I'm in love with this idea now that Roman comes back at Elimination Chamber, costs Seth and Punk, and that's what puts John over, which fits into the narrative perfectly too. Like I feel like that is not a bad way to do that. It gives Punk more reason why he's angry at Roman. That being said, I'm still going to go on the prediction side of The Rock will be there.
I like that.
And everything is going to slot back where it's supposed to be.
You know, Roman being in that triple threat match really doesn't elevate the match either. Like, it's just kind of, it's beneath him, but at the same time, he doesn't elevate either of those guys being in there.
Yep, 100%. That's part of the problem. Who comes out of that match looking like whoever wins that match? What do we do?
Yeah, I mean, CM Punk would probably come out the best if he won, but
yeah,
at the same time, like another pin on Seth Rollins, he's not going to pin Roman.
Right.
So, yep, I agree with you there.
And you could even make, like, I'm not opposed to making one of those matches like a number one contender match going forward. I don't have a problem with that. But when you make it a triple threat match for that, it makes it lesser for Roman than it does the other two guys. And that's where the problem comes in. I think for my prediction, I will put that The Rock does come back and we get Roman and Rock night 2. Night 1, we end with Cena and Cody.
Okay.
And you'll have Punk and Seth Rollins. Maybe we do that night 1. And then you do Gunther and Jey Uso as that other main event on night 2. And again, but now that leaves off the women's side, who we were both just saying we could totally see a Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton main event. So they're not wrong. If they try doing all these we have so many main events, they're technically not wrong. It's just if everything's a main event, nothing's a main event.
Yep. Yeah, to me, the main event is the last match on the show.
Yeah.
Oh, man. My head, you got my head spinning now on all these different things.
Don't get too excited. I went into the Matrix for the Royal Rumble and came out the other side with nothing.
Yeah, true.
I got nothing.
True. What if Cena beats Cody? And
that's happening.
That's happening. Yep. Yeah. Cena rides it out. We're shooting like last match is like December, but I don't think he holds the belt for that long. Let's say, what if Roman beats him at SummerSlam? And very similar to how Roman Reigns came back at SummerSlam, Cody comes back at SummerSlam this time. And that's how you build the trilogy. Start slowly building it to WrestleMania 42. But this is a WrestleMania 41 prediction, not a WrestleMania 42. We would have you guys here all day if me and Brian got into our sometimes me and Brian will be at work, guys, and we're booking stuff down the line, like way down the line.
Put your money on Braun Breaker, Jacob Fatu for next year. Like that one, I think is the only one right now, this minute, that I am confident we will get at a WrestleMania. That is going to happen. There's no way around that. Barring any injuries or something, we are going to get that for sure.
I agree.
That's the only one.
100%.
But I think that John is going to go over. I think Cody goes away for a little bit because we get that big heel turn in the match, and then he goes away, and then when he comes back, he's full Homelander Cody. I think you could have Cena carry that championship into SummerSlam because what is his last pay-per-view going to be? Do we
They're
know?
saying it's a pay-per-view in December.
Okay.
And they're gonna call it gosh, what are they gonna call it? Ruthless Aggression.
Oh, that's right. I did kind of hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, in Boston. So
Okay.
yep.
There's going to be they will do a lot of stuff for Cena going away. I totally expect him. See, he's got to put somebody over though at that match. Like that's one of those matches where I feel like if he wants to cement his legacy, my wife and I were talking about this the one day about Hogan and his that don't work for me, brother, and not putting people over and what it means when you do. And I feel like Cena leaving and walking away, his last thing he does out the door is to put somebody over big time.
He will.
That's what the goats do. That's what you do for the business. That's how you work, and that's how you come out the other end with nobody having anything horrible to say about you. That everybody loves John Cena. So I wonder who that would be, who he would put over. I love our crazy idea that we were talking about. You have Dom win Money in the Bank. Dom cashes in and beats Cody at his last thing, and he puts Dom over. I would be giddy with excitement because it would be glorious. It won't happen, but boy, would that just melt people's minds. Everybody's minds would just melt with that.
People would be done with the WWE if the last person Cena puts over is Dirty Dominic Mysterio, man.
Why not? Why not?
Because I think it would just leave the most sour taste in people's mouths. But that's coming from a guy that likes Dominic Mysterio and would be totally fine with that. I'd be perfectly fine with that.
They wouldn't do it, but I'm looking for something crazy like that on John's way out, that he puts somebody over and we kind of move the ball forward that way instead of like, it'd be great if it was Roman. Seems a bit predictable. You could even do him and CM Punk. I think that would be okay.
Yeah.
I guess I would be all right with that. But yeah, I think John definitely goes over at WrestleMania though with Cody, and we get the Cody Lander turn, hopefully.
For sure. I think we got a pretty solid card there for today's episode. I mean, obviously there's names we missed. Like we didn't have Jacob Fatu. He will have a match at WrestleMania.
Sure.
It's gonna be like him or Solo. I mean, we briefly touched on Sammy and Kevin. Like there is a bunch of filler matches we've missed on, but I feel like we have all the title matches covered.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing when you're building a WrestleMania card. So for me, I think I'm good on all of my takes. Are you good on yours?
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
We forgot to mention that Solo Sikoa is back with Cody. Right back into the bloodline stuff. Why?
I don't know.
Why is Solo Sikoa back and comes in and has to hit Cody with his little sore thumb? Why are we going back down this road?
Because they have so much faith in this guy and he's just bland.
But why are we involving Cody? Like we can't move past this part of the story with I thought we were getting Cody out of the bloodline dredge that we've gone through.
Because it's going to be Cody and Solo at Elimination Chamber, and he's going to lose again. And Solo's big thing is we don't deal with losers. And then Jacob Fatu is going to snap on him. And that's how you work towards that match at WrestleMania. Why we have to involve Cody Rhodes in it? I have no clue. Like, why can't he go fight like Shinsuke or something?
Yeah.
And then you can deal with the losing then. Or what if he fought like, I don't know, Damian Priest? That'd be more entertaining. I haven't seen that yet.
I just don't want to see Solo Sikoa
No.
and Cody. You know what? Have Jacob turn on Solo much quicker, and let's throw Jacob Fatu and Cody. Like, give Jacob Fatu just a little taste of
Yeah.
getting in one of those matches. We've teased it for a long time, going back to War Games with those two, had a little side thing going on. I think we
Yep.
talked about it at some point. I would be okay with that. Give Jacob Fatu more of a rub by getting in there with Cody and that kind of stuff. Like, I don't need to see Solo Sikoa and Cody again. I thought we got him out of this mess, and we're right back in.
Well,
That's a negative. I don't like that.
hopefully we don't see it.
Yeah.
That's the goal from that. We don't see
Yeah.
it. The
Yeah.
fact that I might see a Solo Sikoa Cody Rhodes trilogy for the title before I see a Roman and Cody trilogy for the title is stupid.
Yeah.
Be better WWE. There's my critique. Enough
Yeah.
Solo Sikoa in the main event. You have had him fight 3 big matches for the title.
Mm-hmm.
Give someone else a chance, man.
Yeah.
Give
I
someone else
mean, I would be like, how gratifying would it be to have Solo Sikoa out there with Jacob Fatu in the gang, and they just jump him, and they're just like, dude, we are so over you. Like, we've been over you. I don't listen, like, because Jacob Fatu, I feel like they're moving away from the bloodline, having him just be a loose cannon.
Mhm.
And what better way to set that up to have him just turn on Solo Sikoa and just lay waste to him like he did Braun Strowman,
Yeah.
and just we eliminate the Solo Sikoa problem and move forward with Jacob Fatu and just keep pushing him more and more into this unstoppable force. So when he does meet up with Braun Breaker, we are just waiting for Braun Breaker to just bust this dude up.
Yeah.
And that is just that's going to be an awesome match. Maybe I just want that match too much, and I'm trying to get it as soon as possible, even though I know we
Fair
have to
you
wait
want
for
it, man. It is
Yeah.
fair that you want that match.
Yeah.
That's a match you could see a couple times at a WrestleMania down the
Yeah.
line. That's 2 dudes that definitely have a very bright future in this company.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot on this. We went from Jim Cornette and why he hates the Women's Royal Rumble all the way through a little bit of predictions, a little bit of matchmaking at WrestleMania, and this is just the beginning because this is always going to be in flux going forward now.
Yeah.
We're getting to the nitty-gritty. I know it's the nitty-gritty. Ooh, because I'm so close to booking those plane tickets and going to Vegas for Mania.
Yeah, it's going to be a WrestleMania season, man.
Yeah.
No better time as a wrestling fan. Um, that's all I got for today, man. I got a quick note. TikTok has been semi-active, but I'm getting part of my life back, guys. I really am. For those that don't know, I coach an 8th grade basketball team. Season is coming to an end. We just got the busiest part of our year. I think I've got like two to three 1.1 possession losses. Heartbreakers, man. Tough stuff. But shout out my boys. I know I got a few of them that are actually subscribed to the podcast. So shout out
What's
to
up,
you guys.
Yoko?
Yeah,
What's up, buddy?
yes, sir, man. I just went out there and he was like, "Man, really? You got Braun Breaker, AJ Styles?" And he's always listened. He's literally listening to the podcast through the walls right now, probably. But we love all you guys, and we really appreciate you guys
Yep.
tuning in. We appreciate you guys. Shout out to our friends over at the Realm Paranormal Podcast. Brian, what's going on over there?
Yep. Yeah, the gang's going to be in Ireland. It's coming up in just a couple of weeks, so this is going to be awesome. I am excited for the investigations that are going to go on over there because it's Ireland, it's old castles, Loch Ness. This is going to be a lot of fun. apparently the place that the gang is staying at near Loch Ness is literally like right there on the
Yo,
loch. And I think they have like canoe rentals that come with their stay. So that is going to be,
that's
it's going
awesome.
to be super awesome. Rich, don't lose the drone. Whatever you do, don't lose the drone. That is my advice. I'm Brian and he's Will. We'll
Till
catch you
next
guys
time,
next time
guys.
on the WWR podcast.
Love
Peace
people.
out, everybody.
See you guys.
You have any idea how hard it is to do a Jim Cornette impersonation without swearing? It is not easy because it usually will start. Everybody talking about the Women's Royal Rumble, saying that it's better than what it was because geese don't understand about the Women's Royal Rumble and what wrestling is all about. Kill you.